everybody, and welcome back to this week's edition of the Waterboy Experience. I am your host, the Waterboy himself, Davis McLemore, and you'll have to excuse our audio a little bit because I am recording on location in my new residence in Gulfport. But we got a lot to talk about this week, so we figured, why the fuck not? We might as well go ahead and just do something here. We got some Formula One news to cover, a little bit of NFL, and we're going to talk a little bit about wrestling. And here to help me tackle all that is my good buddy, the CEO and CFO of Night Productions, the Red Bull chugging son of a gun himself, Mr. Jason Shaddix. Jason, how are you, man?
Well, this is strange. We haven't done this in a very long time. We haven't recorded remotely. And to make things worse, you got no Wi-Fi, man. There's no Wi-Fi where you're living at.
Yeah. I mean, I'm working off of the cellular data off of the cell phone. So, again, we apologize to the listeners, the people out there. It might be a little shoddy because all I have in is AirPods, and I'm looking at your beautiful face, your ugly, beautiful face here on my phone. So we'll see how this works and what we can make out of this episode. I think it'll be good.
Yeah, so by the way, we're not doing a video podcast. It's just an audio only for now.
Absolutely not. We're not not anytime soon. I don't think anybody wants to look at us.
I know, especially after you're 9 beers in, 2 shots of tequila in, and it's
I don't have
any.
No. I don't have any tequila here, man. I wish I did. Dude, apparently there's a liquor store down the road here from my new residence here in Gulfport, Mississippi, that is the cheapest liquor store in South Mississippi.
And then at 2 a.m. when you hear the gunshots, you'll understand, oh, that's why it's cheap.
That's why. But they have a big sign out front that says cheapest liquor in Mississippi. I was like, man. So I'll have to hit that place up soon. But well, what's going on? What are you doing?
What am I doing?
What are you doing?
Well, I'm trying not to cut my wrist after this Friday, and we're gonna get onto the show. But I just gotta vent this. On Friday, both cars went out. Both cars. I'm not talking about in a race. I'm talking about my personal vehicles. Both went out. The timing chain on one of them is fucked. And then the other one, which we went to go get, and we're like, all right, we're going to go to the mechanic. We're going to figure this out. I get in my car. I start it up. The battery's dead. Fucking dead.
You called me after the first one.
Oh, yeah. I was like, motherfucker, this goddamn piece of shit. If I didn't need the car, I'd smash it into bits with this fucking tire iron. Fuck this. Fuck that.
But it was the second one that is what got me my ass off. Tell them about the second one, the Equinox.
No, well, the Equinox was the first one. The second one was mine, the Fusion. So it's just a shitty situation.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, the Fusion.
But I'll tell you what, my car went out. Well, I mean, my car, the Equinox went out, and we had to use the Fusion, and then I had to let my parents use the Fusion, specifically my dad, so he could go to work, because this is in a shop now. And it's very similar to what happened this week at the Australian Grand Prix when Alex Albon bent his car into turn 6, and the chassis was broken beyond repair, and they had to give him Logan Sargent's chassis. So Logan Sargent was not in the Grand Prix. He was told, all right, you're going to sit this one out, kid. We need the best possible performance. And Alex, you're up, even though you just crashed the car.
Which, I mean, look, if you're going to go with, between the two drivers, Logan Sargent and Alex Albon is the better of the two. Everybody knows that. That's, basically everybody understands. So everybody really got mad about Logan Sargent being benched for this Grand Prix. And me and you were kind of on the agreement, like, no, this is exactly what they were supposed to do. Could you imagine what they would have done if they would have just put Logan Sargent in the race? It would have been a fucking mess.
Well, based on how Logan Sargent has cost them $4.2 million in damages alone last season, my guess is he would have bent it. He would have
Yeah.
fucking binned it.
Oh yeah. And then you have no chassis in Australia.
Yes,
So
because they don't have a spare chassis in Australia. They don't even have one in the factory back in England. I thought they did, and they just didn't fly it out. No, it turns out just because of the whole thing they had with revamping the infrastructure for the team, they didn't have enough time to build a third chassis, and they told them, "Don't fucking crash them." And what did they do? Alex bend it. So
yeah.
here's the thing: if you're Haas, if you're RB, if you're Kick, you're looking at this and going, you know what? This is a great opportunity because we have spare chassis. What we can do is when we're right on their gearbox, we can pressure them into making mistakes because they either have one or two choices. Either they bend it and that's it, they're done until the chassis comes in, or they have to slow down and we get to pass them because they can't afford to make the mistakes.
What does this say? I know we talked maybe a couple years ago, maybe last year, about how Williams is specifically on financials and money and equipment and stuff. What does this say about them? That they weren't prepared. They didn't have the funds. They didn't have the resources to make a third chassis.
Well, it wasn't about them not having the funds. Think about it like this. So you know how in our hometown, right now, traffic is being redirected because one of the bridges to get to the next town is being replaced, and they're building a brand new one. So there's only one way out of this. Well, technically two ways, but there used to be three. But there's two ways. There's only one way out of the city, and all traffic's being diverted into it because they're having to completely just make sure that the other bridge is ready, and when it's ready, they're going to open it back up. That's almost kind of like what they're doing. They're like, okay, we're going to sacrifice traffic. We're going to have a lot of traffic. We're going to have a lot of problems, and we're going to make sure that this fundamental thing is ready so that we don't have to deal with this issue again. That's basically what they're doing.
Okay. Well, that makes a little more sense.
It does, but at the same time, it kind of opens you up to everybody knows you can't afford a crash. If the chassis is done, they're done. So they're going to put the pressure on Williams, and it's going to ramp up. And going back to, what you were talking about earlier about people were complaining, I can see both sides. I can see that Logan Sargent is going to be destroyed. His confidence is probably going to be done because they just took away his car and they gave it to Alex, basically saying, yeah, we know you're the drizzling shits. Alex isn't, so sorry, bye.
But don't you agree with that? Like,
oh, I 100% agree with it.
Yeah. Either one of those two drivers had any potential, Alex Albon has the most, bar none.
He does. And he got close to the points, P11, which a lot of people are chastising them, saying, look, he didn't even get in the points. If he had gotten a single point, it would have been worth it. But
he's driving a Williams. Well, how good can you do?
Well, we expect points. That's the thing. We expect him to be P10, P9. I mean, for God's sakes, Yuki Tsunoda put that fucking thing in P8, and then after the Alonso penalty, he went up to P7. Now RB is leading the Constructor Championship for the back markers.
Which that's, when you say back markers, what do you mean by that?
Well, I mean the teams at the bottom.
Oh, so they're in like 5th place or something like that?
No, they're in 6th.
Oh, 6th.
So you're talking Haas, Williams, Kick, RB.
Basically the nicest guys in prison.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
So that's what they expect out of him. And I think one or two things will happen. Either Logan Sargent's confidence is going to go back up and he's going to be like, I'm going to prove to you that you shouldn't do that, that I'm good enough. Or his confidence is going to be completely destroyed and he's going to be the drizzling shits from now on.
Which we love our American boy, Logan Sargent. We love him. But he doesn't have a place in Formula One right now. I feel like there's much better racers in Formula 2 and Formula 3.
Yeah, I mean, we saw Oliver Bearman, what he was capable of.
Oliver Bearman, there you go.
And here's the thing, while on the topic of a race driver losing confidence, the New Zealand Herald has reported that Helmut Marko gave Daniel Ricciardo an ultimatum. You either improve and start being close to Yuki, or you're going to get sacked by the Miami Grand Prix, which is 2 races away.
Oh,
And this isn't like a rumor, like, oh, maybe there's nothing behind it. I saw Fox Sports Australia report it. I'm like, oh shit, then this is real.
and I mean, we've said this for the past couple years about Daniel Ricciardo. He's a great guy. He was a great driver at some point in his career, but it's like he's lost it. He doesn't have it anymore. He's a little bit washed up. So can you be a lot of people picked him to be the replacement for Carlos Sainz when he inevitably leaves Red Bull. But
You mean Sergio Perez?
yeah, Sergio Perez, Checo, my bad. Again, I reiterate, I'm a little drunk. But can you really justify replacing him with Checo or, the other way around when he's not doing great?
And the thing is, with Nick DeVries, we gave him the benefit of the doubt, and I felt that he might have needed a little bit more time to get used to the car. The problem with Daniel Ricciardo is he's not a rookie to Formula One, nor is he a rookie to these rules and regulations.
He's won races before, right?
Yes, he has. And when he went to Renault for 2019, it's just been downhill. McLaren completely destroyed his confidence. And I hate to say it, but he's washed up. I really think he is, because you have Yuki Tsunoda, who is doing phenomenal. If anybody disturbs that seat, if we're talking about being in the Red Bull family and being upgraded, it should be Yuki. Yuki should be upgraded before Daniel Ricciardo, because Yuki scored points putting the team in P6, like I said, and then Yuki got into Q3, and this is the second time this year he's gotten that car into Q3. Meanwhile, Daniel has been regulated to Q1. He didn't even make it out because of a mistake he made during qualifying, but he can't afford to have any more mistakes. He needs to show progress, and he's not.
And you can't say that it's the car anymore with Daniel Ricciardo. No, it's him.
It's him. Because we saw that the McLaren was a piece of shit car. And Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris were complaining about it last year, but then they got the upgrades, and freaking Oscar Piastri won a sprint race. It wasn't like an actual Grand Prix, but he won a sprint race. So what does that say about the fact that this rookie is able to comprehend the car and able to drive at an incredible pace? And a lot of people are touting him to be the next big thing, really. Besides, Lando Norris and George Russell, they're like, he's up there with them. He's got potential. He's still a rookie. He's still making mistakes. But fuck, is he good? And then you look at Daniel and you're like, you've been in here for almost a decade, if not more, and you haven't shown that you are capable of being in the Red Bull seat. Even if you're going to be behind Max, you still need to give it 100%.
Oh, yeah. Because what Red Bull is looking for is the 1 and 2P finish. You know what I'm saying? They want their second driver. Max is always going to be P1 besides, outside of whatever happened in this Australian Grand Prix. But you always want your second driver to be just as competitive as Max. So
yeah. And I mean, Checo dropped the ball today. And I mean, that's not unusual for Checo, but when you have an opportunity to actually win a race and you have the fastest car on the grid and you can make it work, it's very telling.
let's talk about that for just a second.
Yeah.
The actual race. So Checo, he had the opportunity to win that race. He had the opportunity to establish himself as their backup plan. But
Yeah.
Checo Perez ended up winning the race. What does that say First of all, what does that say about Checo?
Well, he didn't win the race.
Right, Checo didn't finish.
Yeah. It shows that Checo is not as comfortable with the car as Max is. And a lot of people are going to defend Checo because it turns out he did have some floor damage, which fair enough. But at the end of the day, if Max was down in P7, P8, wherever Checo started for this Grand Prix, Max would have been at the front by lap 4.
Oh yeah,
And that's
easily.
the thing that a lot of people are saying. It's like, how many excuses can we make for Checo? He had an entire season to prove people wrong. He failed. And he barely managed to keep P2 in the driver's standings. And Red Bull kept him on. But we all know the fact that he's not going to be there forever. He's just there until they have somebody ready to replace him and to potentially one day replace Max, because you always have to look at the future. And going back to the Daniel Ricciardo situation, it's being said that Red Bull is very interested in Liam Lawson and what he's doing, because if Daniel gets booted by Miami, Liam Lawson's going to step in and he's going to be the second driver for RB.
Is that a good pick?
I think it is, because we saw what he was capable of with, what was it, 2-3 races? He did fucking phenomenal for the little amount of time he had to practice, because remember, Daniel broke his hand during second practice. In came in Liam Lawson. He wowed them in Sandford. He did good in Monza. And then when they went to Singapore, he did well again there. He had a little bit of an issue, but I mean, Singapore, it's a really tough track, because it's not only pushing the limit of your skills with the difficulty, but you also got to think about the intense heat there. And then Qatar, and he didn't finish off Qatar to a great ending, but fuck, he was still fucking phenomenal. I think give him a chance. He really deserves that chance, and he might get that chance. And there are rumors going around that they're thinking about putting him in that RB seat for 26 if he does well this year and next year.
I think it would. I feel like it's a little too early for him. I think you got to sit him in. You got to see a little bit more of what he can do and let him build his talent. But it all depends on what Yuki Tsunoda and Daniel Ricciardo can do. Right now, it's not looking good for Daniel Ricciardo. So outside of Liam Lawson, who would they put in that RB seat besides Daniel Ricciardo?
Well, it's the guy that's going to replace Daniel Ricciardo for Free Practice 1 in Japan. It's I don't have his name pulled up, so I can't say his name, but it's a Japanese driver, and they were always going to do this. The difference is because of the way the schedule's been done this year, Japan's usually at the end of the season, so if Daniel would have still been on, he would have had to give up his seat for this Japanese driver, because they're not going to sit out Yuki, because they're going to go, oh, look, this is 2 Japanese drivers driving in a Japanese track powered by Japanese engine. So it's like a little bit of a marketing thing. But that kid, if he's getting a shot, maybe they're also saying like, okay, maybe this kid's got something. Maybe he'll replace Yuki. So if I knew the kid's name, I would say it, but I just can't remember his name.
And plus, we're very bad with foreign names, especially when it comes to the Japanese.
Yes, especially when you don't even have their names on hand, but you know, like the news going on. So the pressure is really on for Daniel, because he's going to have less time to practice in Japan. And then comes the Chinese Grand Prix. Again, you're going to push him to his limit. And will he? Will he not? Is he going to make it? Honestly, I don't think Daniel's going to be here by the time the Miami Grand Prix comes.
No, and I think his time in Formula One his days are numbered. You know what I'm saying? He's been around for a while. He's never cut it out. So
no.
Thanks for coming, Danny Rick.
Yes, and it's also a little bit baffling, because a lot of people know Daniel from like his days at Red Bull with alongside Max, his days at Renault and McLaren. But a lot of people forget that Sebastian Vettel was getting beaten by Daniel And a lot of people thought, well, Daniel might be better than Sebastian. Then Sebastian left for Ferrari. Daniel Kvyat was in the seat. Daniel Kvyat was okay. Then he was replaced by Max Verstappen, and the rest is history. So it's almost baffling how Daniel was once touted to be this great talent, and then it's almost like when Max came in, he was destroyed and shown that he's not. He's not that great. So that's one of the things. Now, let's move on and let's talk about one of the bigger talking points about the Australian Grand Prix. And it's the fact that George Russell had a really nasty crash at the last lap in turn 6, the same place where Alex Albon bended. But this time, it wasn't because of a mistake. I mean, it kind of was, but at the same time, it wasn't like Alex Albon. George Russell was in P7 chasing down Fernando Alonso in P6. And apparently, based on the telemetry, and they reviewed Alonso during that lap and then the previous couple laps, and they found out that Alonso brake checked him essentially. And because of that sudden, like the Aston Martin was suddenly closer to the Mercedes, the dirty air, which is the air that comes out from the car, it's kind of like when you're driving behind a car in the highway and you kind of feel that air push you back, especially if you got like a van, a minivan. Those things tend to shake. So you have an 18-wheeler pushes through the air and you feel this outwash come towards you and it shakes the car. And it's a really horrible feeling if you're in a car that's not really stable, which I've been in one. And let me tell you, it's not fun. I thought I almost wrecked. But that's what happened to George Russell because those cars are very sensitive to downforce. He lost so much downforce that he couldn't brake. He couldn't stop the car enough. It goes flying through the gravel trap, hits the wall, bounces off the wall, and then lands on its side. So the car is basically being held up by the wheels because there's these things called tethers. And it's kind of like these really strong strings that are attached to the wheels of the car. Basically, they don't want the wheels to go flying off and accidentally hitting a marshal, which is something that's happened in the past. So these wheels, they stay on the car. They're connected to the car. Even though they break, they're still connected. Well, they got under the car, so he was on his side. George was just going, red flag, red flag, red flag, because this is a fast corner. So he was afraid somebody was going to hit him. So it was just a really nasty shunt. Alonso got a 20-second time penalty, which dropped him from 6th to 8th. And I just got to say this because it's kind of bothering me. Some people are like going online and they're saying, oh, George Russell screamed red flag because he wanted to keep his place. It's like, no, because he didn't want to get hit, you fucking idiots.
Yeah, I mean, every other car on the grid is moving at 120 miles an hour plus.
Try 150.
150 plus. And you know that there's cars coming around the corner. You're like, all right, don't let them fucking kill me at this point.
Yes, because that would have been a head-on collision. They would have probably crushed his head in.
Probably. That would have been, that would have been it for George Russell. He's done.
Exactly. Luckily, the engineers were like, all right, slow down. And they slowed down because Lance Stroll was the next car behind. And he saw him or saw the accident or they told him. And he just moved out and slowed down and went through the gravel track to avoid hitting Russell. But it was just a really nasty hit.
Well, if it's Lance Stroll, he's not going very fast to begin with. So
that is true.
The other thing was, the footage came out, the radio audio with the footage came out, and Fernando was kind of mentioned that Fernando was like, hey, that's not my fault. But you could clearly see it on the audio or on the video where...
On telemetry.
Yeah, he brake checked him like clear as day. And then he's like, that's not my fault. It's like, no, it is Fernando. Sorry, but...
You know what's funny, though, is somebody pulled up the footage of him doing that to somebody else. It was 20 years ago in that exact same corner.
But, people get brake checked in Formula One all the time. It's just one of those dirty little tricks. It's like holding in the NFL. Everybody gets held on the defensive or offensive line. It's just a matter of how obvious do you make it. And in this case, it turned out pretty bad.
Yeah, and I don't think that Alonso wanted George Russell to just destroy his car. I think he just wanted George Russell to slow down or go through the gravel track, something to slow him down, and he didn't expect the car to lose that much downforce because of Fernando saying, "Oh well, I had problems with the throttle," and everybody knows, dude, that's a load of horse shit. You know you were in fucking trouble. You were like, "Oh fuck, I didn't mean him to crash. I just wanted to slow him down." So I think it's a penalty that I think it's not a racing accident. Well, it's an accident in the fact that Fernando didn't mean to cause him to crash. But at the same time, you did it on purpose. You were caught doing it on purpose. The telemetry doesn't lie.
No.
So in that instance, I think the penalty is well given. We also had another issue in Formula 2 where this driver impeded some other driver in qualifying. And then when the other guy was doing his hot lap, he just pushes him out of the track, like literally just rams into the side of him, and he goes flying and hits the wall. And a lot of people are saying, what the fuck? What is wrong with that guy? He should get banned. And the dude only received a 10-second time penalty. So there's been a lot of heat going on about the fact that, are these penalties fair? In the Formula 2 case, no, I would have given that guy a race ban. I would have been like, fuck it, dude, that is completely reckless. You shouldn't have been doing that, especially because, let's be honest, you wouldn't have won the race anyway. You're not a great competitor to begin with. So I would have banned him from a couple of races. But the Fernando thing, racing accident, but you don't want to set a precedent. So I think a 20-second time penalty for it should be good enough for Fernando for now. If anybody does that again, or if Fernando does it again next year, you know what? I'm going to have to disqualify you because that is fucking reckless.
Yeah. So, I mean, and we saw it a couple years ago with, Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen. Max Verstappen brake checked Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah, Saudi Arabia.
It didn't result in, what occurred in the Australian Grand Prix, but,
That time, Max was at 100% at fault right there. Yeah, everybody knew what he was doing. I'm like, I was watching the race and I'm like, oh, Max, why did you do that? Because I'm thinking, the heat, you're getting a lot of heat. A lot of people don't like you as it is. Now you're really getting fucking nuclear heat. And that's the video, like, if you remember, that's when Toto grabs his headphones and just smashes it down on the desk. That's the clip. That's where it comes from. Fucking pissed.
Well, let's move on to the actual race.
Yeah, to the actual race. You alluded to it earlier. Max Verstappen suffered an issue. Basically, what happened was when the race started, he said that there was something wrong with his rear right brake. Apparently, it was stuck on. So he was braking the entire time he was driving, and it was causing the brakes to overheat. And we saw smoke come out during lap 3. And we saw Carlos Sainz take him over for the lead. And everybody's like, oh, Max is suffering an engine issue. He managed to get the car into the pit, and there's a lot of smoke coming out. And as he's driving down the pit lane, the thing just explodes. There's a loud boom, and black debris goes everywhere. He parks the car, and he's out of the Grand Prix. Carlos Sainz takes the lead. Charles Leclerc is behind him, but at the end of the day, Carlos Sainz won the Australian Grand Prix. And this is twice that he has broken Max Verstappen's streak. One in Singapore last year, now Australia.
Let's go ahead and sing it. Smooth operator. Smooth operator.
So I think it's incredible that he won. And it shows two things. One, what the fuck was Ferrari thinking in firing him and hiring Lewis Hamilton? Because Hamilton had an engine issue. Hamilton didn't even finish the race.
So now you look like a bunch of fucking putzes.
Exactly. Because Charles Leclerc wasn't even close to battling him for the lead. That's the thing. This race showed that the rules and regulations are the issue. It's not Max Verstappen. It's the fact that these cars can't compete against each other. Like, they're too heavy, and then the dirty air just completely destroys him. Even Oliver Behrman was talking about after the Saudi Arabia Grand Prix. He's like, I was surprised about how much downforce we lost during the race while chasing somebody. So that happens. And now the second thing is there's rumors going around that Christian Horner wants to put Carlos Sainz in that second seat at Red Bull.
Whoa. Can
Exactly.
you blame him, though?
No. I mean, we've talked about his dad was talking to Red Bull. They were also talking to Mercedes. There's also Audi. So there's a lot of rumors going around. And here's the thing. Carlos was a Red Bull junior driver. He was at Toro Rosso alongside Max. He ended up leaving to go to Renault. From Renault, he went to McLaren, Ferrari. And now we're just looking at him and he's going back full circle. He's going back to Red Bull probably. And I think it's the best seat. And I think it's going to be amazing to see him race alongside Max. If it happens, of course. Because you also have the Audi deal, which is a phenomenal deal. But it's one of those things where you're like, are they going to be good enough?
I don't think so.
I think he should go to Mercedes for 2 years. I think that's what he should do. 2026 comes. If you want to go to Audi, go to Audi. But I think his best bet is at Mercedes.
Well, I mean, looking at it from as a person managing a brand new team and getting things figured out, you would want a Carlos Sainz there.
Yes.
Mercedes has George Russell. Would Carlos Sainz really want to sit behind George Russell?
Well, who's to say he's going to sit behind George Russell? He's
That's
got
the
more
other
experience
question.
than George. Because it may turn out that George, I'm sorry, buddy, I love you, but I'm taking over this team. I'm leading. You're going to be sitting behind me.
No, don't lie. We don't love him.
Well, I'm just saying Carlos saying that to George.
Oh, yeah.
So that was the Formula One Grand Prix review in Australia. It was actually a shitty race. I'm not going to lie. There wasn't a lot of overtaking. But Max being out was mind-blowing, which is like, I think 42 Grand Prix since he DNF'd, which was when he was fighting with Lewis for the championship. Lewis Hamilton also was out. That was interesting. Alpine didn't do as bad as we expected. Kick Sauber did just as bad as we expected. And then the Russell and Alonso thing, it wasn't the greatest racing race, but it was entertaining. I think it was entertaining.
Yeah. Now, the other thing I have to ask you, this problem that Red Bull had, specifically Max, is that something that could plague the team for the rest of the year? Is that something that could hold them back?
Excellent question, Sheldon. Okay, that's the thing. What caused it? That's what they're going to try to figure out. What caused this brake to lock up? Was it just a mechanical failure that it can happen? Because you always run the risk of something going wrong. That's just a given. You run the risk. But if it's a problem with the manufacturer of the brakes, then you really have to figure that out because you always run that risk. Because then it's a bigger risk. Because if they tell them, oh, I think these parts are defective, they're like, oh shit, we'll design brand new ones to replace the ones we have right now. I think we got to wait and see in China. And I mean Japan. We got to wait to see for Japan to see if this is a issue. Checo didn't have that issue though, so that's the important thing. Checo didn't have that issue. If you remember to 2022, both Red Bulls had the fuel pump issue, and that was an issue that was caused by the supplier, not by Red Bull themselves or something that they did. So, if Checo doesn't have an issue, I think it's a one-off thing. But we have to give it the Japanese and the Chinese Grand Prix to see if it was just one of those unfortunate, unlucky things that happened, or if it's going to be a prevalent issue going forward.
Yeah.
But I think that's enough Formula One news, reviews, whatever the fuck this is. So we're going to move on to the NFL, where we don't have a lot of news, but we have some very controversial news.
Ooh. controversial doesn't begin to describe it. So, this week we had two new rule changes from the NFL. The first one, not in chronological order necessarily, but in order of importance, being the kickoff rule change. They're changing the kickoff to look a little more like the UFL, or you might know it better as the XFL's kickoff, which I'm not
Yep.
totally 100% against. Okay, at least we still have a kickoff, because originally they were talking about getting rid of the kickoff and the punt entirely, which, is absolutely ridiculous, and I don't agree with it.
I agree to get rid of it like every time they turn over the ball and they do it. I think that's ridiculous, but I think, you know what? Start off the game doing that. That's not bad, but I just don't see any value in it, doing it over and over after each turnover. So I'm like, come on already, just throw the fucking football. At least that's for me. That's my perspective.
Yeah.
I think it's something that we should keep for the beginning. I'm interested to see if this is going to work in the NFL. I really am.
I think it will. And the big rule, the big one, which I sent it to you earlier and I already gave you my thoughts on it. So the NFL decided this week they were going to ban the hip drop tackle. And if you don't know what the hip drop tackle is, it's basically you're chasing a receiver or a tight end or a running back or a kickoff returner, and you wrap your arms around their hips and you pull them to the ground. It's relatively safe. Accidents happen every now and then, but it's one of the most safe tackles in football. Yeah, they decided they were going to ban that move. And so I'm like, how is the defense supposed to play defense at this point? What are they supposed to do? Just let the guy run?
Yeah, because here's the thing. First off, the NFLPA Association, the whole Players Association, they were against the banning of this move, and they still did it. But the NFL said that they want to make it clear that it wanted what it's called the swivel hip drop tackle out of the game. That's what they mean. But because of the way it's described and how a tackle is a tackle, regardless of what you do, it's a tackle. Now, there's specific ways that you can interpret it, and where it's like, okay, you can't tackle with, what was it, like with your head down and something like that? Isn't that one of the rules?
No, absolutely not. You can't tackle, head to head or shoulder to head, that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. That is actually something that you can be like, okay, that is a clear rule. No head injury, no shoulder to head, whatever. But the way it's being described, like the legitimate definition of a hip drop tackle, and they want to get rid of the swivel hip drop tackle, okay? The way they described it, if you wanted to, you can interpret it to mean almost any tackle. Because what if you tackle the guy and you just swivel just because of the way the body goes after, it collides? Does that mean that's illegal? I mean, a referee could say, okay, I'm going to count that as illegal because I got some money on this game and I don't need them to do that shit.
And everybody thinks that it's very black and white between the different kinds of tackles. It's really not. The whole goal is to just bring the guy down.
Yeah, and you and I have actually talked about this because while we were watching games, I would go to you and I'm like, isn't that illegal? And you're like, it looks like it, but it's not. And you explained it to me. But here's the thing. A referee could still say, well, that's not what I saw. This is a penalty.
Oh, yeah. Easily.
So that's the thing that people are worried about is, and it's going to happen because what's been the biggest issue prevalent in the NFL for the last 2-3 years? The fucking
ACL
referees.
injuries? Oh, yeah.
Well, that too.
Well, and I think that's what they're trying to prevent is the ACL injuries with this hip drop tackle, which, I mean, it doesn't do anything to prevent it.
Yeah. Well, they're not trying to prevent the ACL injuries from happening because, look, it's fucking football. It's a contact sport. You expect injuries. What they don't like is the fact that all their stars went out last year because of moves like that.
Right.
And by their stars, I mean like their big players, the people they push, and they're like, oh no, this is bad for our ratings. No, 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 no. You doing this, you making this new stupid regulation, this new stupid rule, that's bad for ratings. A lot of people were like, okay, all right, our quarterback's out. That fucking sucks. But let's see, what our backups looks like. And it also opened up the opportunity for lesser teams to get a better chance at making it. We saw the Houston Texans, which I'm not taking anything away from the Houston Texans because they did phenomenal, but they were playing against teams that were injured.
They were not at 100% to say the least. Now, the other thing is, I want to point out, Aaron Rodgers did not tear his ACL off of a hip drop tackle.
It was his Achilles heel.
It was his Achilles. But it's just, I've never seen a hip drop tackle actually injure somebody to the point where they were out for the rest of the season.
I kind of have, and it was because of my boys during that Rams game. But yeah, they technically grabbed them by the hips, but they were always aiming for the fucking knees. That's the thing. They were aiming for the fucking knees.
Oh yeah, for sure. But I mean, the other thing is, in Formula One, you have racing accidents. In football, you have football accidents. Sometimes a guy gets hurt and there's nothing you can do about it. Everybody did everything they were supposed to do, but he still gets hurt. So I think that's kind of what the NFL needs to wake up and realize, that sometimes there's just football accidents. There's injuries that you cannot prevent, and they just happen because they happen.
And going back to the Fernando Alonso, George Russell thing, that was a racing accident, but the problem is because of the way the regulations work and the sudden laws of downforce, it was a dangerous move because Fernando did it on purpose. Like, he brake checked him on purpose. Now, he didn't mean for him to hit the wall and end up in the middle of the road sideways. He didn't. But that's what happened. And they punished him because of the result, not because of the intention, because that's just racing, but because of the result of it. That's what he was punished for. And I think, exactly. And I think that's the way the NFL kind of has to look at a thing. Was it just a pure accident that he ripped his ACL or his Achilles heel? Okay, just be like, look, it's a fucking game. It happens. Now, was there a malicious intent to break that fucking knee, to break that ankle like the Lions were doing? If that's the case, then it's like, look, we're not punishing you for tackling somebody. We're punishing you because you went with malicious intent and the result ended the guy was fucking injured and he's out. I think that's the best way to look at it. But the problem is it's open for interpretation then, because a referee could be like, well, you try to hurt him. He's not hurt, but you try to hurt him. So you're fined or you're getting a penalty.
And I mean, the NFL is trying to do so much. I think you put it the best way the other day when we were talking about it. They're pussifying football.
Yeah, they are.
And it's true, because they're banning all these tackles. They're really fucking the defenses all across the league over, because what else are you going to do?
Yeah.
If you have a guy that is in front of you and he has the ball and he's running down the field, what are you supposed to do? I mean, yeah, you can tackle him by his ankles. I guess that's safer, quote unquote.
But because of the way you're falling and the way he falls, if you tackle him by his ankles, what if the guy swivels, like just turns in the air just because of the sudden stop? Wouldn't that be considered a swivel? Not even a hip drop tackle, but just a swivel tackle, which is what they're trying to get rid of, which is the swivel of it.
And I mean,
so then it's like, it's not his hip, but it's his ankles. But the referee could be like, it's still the swivel, so you're out, or your penalty 10 yards, whatever.
I don't know. I'm not sure about the the direction that the NFL is taking, you might as well just put flags on them and tell them to go out there and play flag football at this point. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, it basically is. The
Essentially.
defense and the offense have been neutralized to the point where I understand that there's safety issues going on, and I know head injuries are something that a lot of people are worried about, concussions. But at the same time, this is fucking football. This is tackle football. You're getting paid millions of dollars. Take a fucking brain injury. If you don't like it, don't play football.
And I mean, these are guys that have been taught all of their lives, all of their football careers through high school, through college, through some of the years that they've played in the NFL, depending on who they are. They've been taught that that's the right way to do things, that the hip drop tackle is the safest way. I remember when I played football in high school, that play, that exact same tackle, they taught us this is the safest way to tackle and this is how we want you to tackle. And they burned it
Yeah, I
into our
remember that.
brains. They burned it into our brains until that was really all we did. But now you've taken that away. How hard is it going to be for these guys to adjust to all of a sudden, they automatically think, oh, you don't even think about what kind of tackle you're doing in the heat of the moment. You just grab them and you bring them down in the safest
Yeah.
way possible. But automatically, they're predetermined to want to do a hip drop tackle. Now they can't do that. They're going to get penalized and fined and all this kinds of different shit. Like,
And you know the first couple of games, it's just going to be penalty after penalty after penalty. And like I said, even though they're trying to get rid of that the swivel of it, at the end of the day, the way it's worded, the referee can just call almost any tackle illegal. Then what are you
oh
going to
yeah,
do?
it's just like they can call any physical contact from the defender onto the receiver while the ball is in the air pass interference. You used to not be able to do
Yes.
that, but now if he touches him while the ball is coming his way, it's pass interference.
Which doesn't make any sense to me. Like, I get not tackle the guy right before, like, when he doesn't have the ball, but at the same time, I'm like, what is this? Like, doesn't make much sense.
Oh yeah, and I mean it's the whole thing. Obviously, like you said, if he brings him down to the ground, if he absolutely fucking annihilates him and tackles him so he can't catch the ball, yes, that's pass interference. But if he puts his hand on his shoulder pad while the ball is in the air, that's, to me, that's not pass interference. Sometimes you got to admit good defense when you see it.
Yes. And what happens when you have a running back or a tight end who is a smaller guy compared to the offense? What happens if you got these smaller guys and because they're way bigger when you're getting tackled, like you're getting tackled by bigger dudes? We've all seen it. I mean, if we had little brothers, we'd tackle them and, they end up going flying because you're just smaller. I mean, that happens. And what if it happens to these guys and it's, it's not the swivel, but it's just, they end up turning just because of the weight difference. I mean, where's the gray line? This isn't black and white. There's like so many gray lines that it's going to affect the game of football. It's like, this is going to end up really bad.
And they write the rule very black and white. But me and you, just like you said, it's not black and white. It's a situational thing. So you have to write the rules around the situational thing, and then it just becomes a mess. You can't just call whatever you want. It's not like holding where you can call it whenever you feel like calling holding, but it's actually happening every fucking play.
Yeah, with
This
holding,
is something.
if you see the guy holding the fucking jersey, okay, there's no gray area. That's black and white. You're holding onto his fucking jersey.
Right.
Penalty.
But if
But this
is really going to affect the outcomes of games, and it's going to be a problem.
And I think it's going to drive viewers away.
Yes, by week 4, we're going to realize this is a fucking problem, and they never should have done it.
And then what are they going to do? Are they going to go back on it?
Oh yeah, they do that. They do that all the time. They'll make a rule and they'll have it set in stone. That's the law. And they'll go through a whole season. They'll see how people react to it, and then they'll go back on it.
Well, if that was the case, they would have gone back on the fucking head to shoulder tackles because let's be honest. Yeah, it's violent. Yeah, it's fucking dangerous. But how many people have really been injured by it in comparison? Like, how many people have died because of it? Not a lot. Now, they do suffer brain damage, but at the same time, look at it like this. You're playing football and you expect not to come out with a couple of concussions? I think you're smoking the hopium at that point.
Well, to a certain point, if you're purposefully doing it, it's targeting. It's purposefully targeting the head to bring them down for the tackle. And then that is a penalty, and it always should be. But when it's just accidental, like the guy runs into the offensive player, runs into the defensive player's shoulder, you can't really call that targeting or an illegal tackle because it's not the defender's fault.
No, I mean, think about it. They're fighting in, like, they say, go hut, whatever, and you got seconds. You're thinking on seconds. So, like, you're doing it in the moment. You're hitting them in the moment. Sometimes you're like, fuck it, I don't care how I hit this guy. I have to hit him. I have to get him down.
Oh, exactly.
That's simply what happens.
From a football player's perspective, and I wasn't, just to be clear, I was not a great football player. That's why I didn't play it for the last 2 or 3 years of high school.
There's a reason why this place is called the Waterboy.
The Waterboy.
The football player.
Exactly.
The tight end experience. No, this is the Waterboy.
Well, hey, but I don't have a tight end either. I don't know what you're saying. But when you're making that tackle, you don't think about what kind of tackle should I do in this scenario. You don't have time for that. You just grab the guy and you bring him down. And that's why they beat it into your head from an early age. When you're early into the football process, we do tackling drills. They teach you how to tackle. They teach you the proper way to bring a guy down. And that's kind of where you develop. But in reality, in the heat of things, in the heat of a play, in the moment, you don't think about what kind of tackle you need to do. You just think about that fucker needs to go on the ground. We're going to bring him to the ground. And that's all you think about. And so the pros may be much better at this than I ever was, or most of these high school or college age kids. So they might be more technically sound to the actual form of the tackle. But to a certain point, the NFL is just taking this way too far. They're taking the power away from the defense to where now it's almost as if they touch a guy, that's a penalty, even if you're supposed to tackle him. Like, it's just like we said, you might as well just wrap flags around their waist and play flag football at this point. It's a lot like what they've been doing in the NBA for the past 20, 30 years. They've pussified the sport, and there's no physical aspect to it anymore. That's what the NFL is trying to do now.
And if you look at the ratings tell a lot. I know people say, oh, well, not a lot of people have cable television, or not a lot of people have all this and that. So that's why they're losing viewers and stuff like that. Okay, let's look at that. We have Peacock, we have Amazon Prime, we have Paramount Plus, we have the NFL Plus app. All right, you have all these subscriptions to watch your teams play. Now, the whole marketing issue with it's in your market, it's out of your market, that's bullshit and all that. My point is, you could still be a fan and watch these games and be like, okay, I have Peacock. Peacock is basically given away for free if you have Xfinity, or if you just grab their membership for like $2.39 a month for the rest of the year. I mean, I did that, and I was watching NFL games. And the NFL can see who's watching those games on their live streaming services. But the thing is, you're not seeing an increase in viewership. I think it's quite the opposite. You're seeing a decrease. yes, a lot of people did watch the Super Bowl. I think it's the most watched Super Bowl or the second or something like that. We reported on it, but look at the individual games and you're seeing a drop in viewership. And I think you can correlate it to the fact that this is not the same football that it was 10, 15 years ago. And it's almost like the NFL, the NBA, the MLB, and NASCAR, they all kind of made these rules in an attempt to either make things for safety, which it really wasn't, but it was to benefit a certain team or a certain player. And then it kind of bit them in the ass. And that's what we're seeing in all these sports in America, where NASCAR is fucking stupid as fuck. Like, take away the fact that the oval races, but the formats, the stages, all these different ways, like, you can finish in fourth and still get more points than the person who was in first. And that's something that Richard Petty was talking about, how he didn't like that about NASCAR, the stages and all that. He goes, the person in fourth, sixth place can get more points than the person in first, just because of the way the whole format is structured. And it's true. And it takes away from NASCAR. A lot of NASCAR YouTubers say that's one of the big reasons why we don't enjoy watching NASCAR anymore. They've kind of made the sport too stupid and too complicated, overly complicated. Same thing with the NFL, same thing with the NBA. You take away what made the sport great. And now you're like, oh, I'm surprised. Why aren't people watching it? Should we focus more of the camera on Taylor Swift? No. You need to focus on making the games fun again, because they're not fun to watch all the time. I mean, if the offense and the defense is getting like 10 penalties for every down, if they're getting a penalty for every down that they have, first down, second down, penalty after penalty, for all these tackles that everybody's going like, what the fuck? What is going on? What are they trying to do with this fucking game? I'm not watching this shit. I mean, that's what's going to happen. I mean, it's been happening.
It's overproduced, regulated. And I think we can lead into our next topic of something that was once overproduced and overregulated when we talk about the WWE. But that's very similar to what NASCAR and the NFL and the NBA are starting to do. The NBA is one of the biggest offenders of overregulated and overproduced.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I've tried to watch NBA games. I mean, I enjoy playing basketball.
no, you haven't. Don't lie. Don't lie. You're not a basketball guy. You haven't tried to watch a single NBA game ever.
No, I have. I
I
have.
asked you, who is Joel Embiid?
I said I tried. I didn't mean I am trying actively to understand it. No, I'm trying. Like, I've tried to watch some few NBA games, but they're just not entertaining enough. It's like,
In the NBA, it's when we started this whole thing, we wanted to talk about NBA. We wanted to get involved in it, but it's just a fucking mess. It's just they have the tournament in the middle of the season, which I guess is a good thing, but whatever. It's just it's overproduced. It too many rules, too many
too many games.
personal fouls, way too many games. And now you're getting to a point because of that, you have high scoring games. But people have to realize just because you have high scoring games in a sport does not necessarily make it more entertaining, because there's only so many 60-yard deep ball passes we can see in the NFL before it's not entertaining anymore. It's just like in wrestling, you see somebody go through a table once. Yeah, that's cool. You see somebody go through a table twice. That's pretty cool. But after the 10th, 12th time in the same show, it's not that cool anymore. And so you can really say that the NFL, the NBA, the MLB, NASCAR, they're hot-shotting all of this to try to draw viewers. But really, those moments are not as special because they happen all of the time.
And the thing is, I know a lot of people like basketball, but it's more like, how many people like basketball because they like playing NBA 2K?
There's another thing.
I think there's more people playing 2K than there are watching NBA.
Oh yeah, and just because they play NBA 2K does not mean they care about what the fuck's going on in the NBA
Yeah,
in
it's
real
almost
life.
like you and I, because you and I will play the WWE games. We enjoy playing those wrestling games, but you will not see us trying to watch Raw, SmackDown, NXT, AEW consistently. Like, yeah, we enjoy the sport, but we don't like what's being presented right now for the most part. I mean, nowadays it's getting better and better. Like, the product is starting to be good again.
Yeah, I mean, last night I don't know if you watched it or not, and I really doubt that you did because I didn't either. Last night they were talking about this being one of the best episodes of Raw we've seen in the past 20 years with the attack on Cody Rhodes. And we don't talk about wrestling a whole lot. We talk about it when it's important. This is a big deal because of what happened. The Rock attacked Cody Rhodes. We also had CM Punk, who is my personal favorite in the business right now.
Same.
Me and you are gonna watch WrestleMania. We're gonna review WrestleMania on this podcast.
God damn it.
By God, we will. I'm sorry,
Ah,
but we
God
will.
damn it. Man, I'm trying to get out of watching night one, man. Fuck.
Well, we don't have to watch night one. We know all that shit's going to go down on night two. What did you think from what you've seen from the Rock and Cody Rhodes confrontation and the backstage, all the backstage stuff? What do you think? What's your thoughts?
The way I look at it, and it's a great way to look at it, is because The Rock has a lot of influence in how everything goes. I think, for God's sake, he's a board member, and he's been out of wrestling for so long. What he's doing is wrestling angles that are meant to provoke backlash. That's like he's trying to get heat. And what he did was something that you would have seen 20 years ago in every single territory, not just the WWE, not just in WCW, but everywhere from all the way into the 1910s. You would have seen that type of violence, that type of attacks. And a lot of people, and this is what pisses me off, a lot of people are saying, oh, WWE is trying to be AEW.
No. AEW, this entire time that they've existed, have been trying to be WWE.
And
It's the other
ECW.
way around. And ECW
Yes.
and TNA and WCW.
And I think it's great because The Rock is like, I'm a big star. I know what I'm doing. I got over into WWE 20 years ago. I don't need to do this baby ass bullshit. I know how to do it properly.
Does this tell you that they're going to put the belt on Cody at Mania? Are they finally going to do it right?
I would love to say yes, but you know how the WWE tends to go, nope, we're going to do something else. But what it is telling is the fact that when they uploaded it online, they edited the fuck out of it. Did you see that?
I did see that. I watched the edited clip on YouTube and, great angle, but it was nothing compared to what I saw on Twitter. You didn't see the headshots. And the main thing is, they don't do headshots really anymore. But that was one of the big things that they edited out. But it was still fun to watch.
It's still fun to watch. But here's the thing, though. The Rock is a professional. Say what you want about The Rock, but The Rock is a professional. I know people are going like, oh my God, headshots, that can cause problems. It's like, look, if you are actually into wrestling and you watch the old timers 20 years ago, how they did headshots, the people who did the unprotected chair shots, they are the idiots, because what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to put your arm up at the last minute to block it. But a lot of these dudes, and it comes from ECW, it's like, yeah, I'm going to be tough. I don't need to put my hands up. Just hit me in the head. Yeah, do it. I got brain damage. I was born like this. That's what they're doing.
I was born with brain damage and a coke addiction and pain pills. I can take it.
Exactly. But it's because these guys were just hot-shotting, and they were doing things to get attention. And a lot of these unexperienced wrestlers, like, who just saw the moves but didn't actually pay attention to the skill that goes into this, if they would have paid attention, they would have noticed, oh, even though it looks violent, they're still protecting themselves. They're not taking unprotected chair shots. It's why 20 years ago you didn't see all these, oh, let me break a light bulb tube. You know what I'm talking about? Those fluorescent tubes over your fucking face. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You didn't see that 20 years, 20, 25 years ago, 30 years ago. You didn't see that. That's a modern thing. That's a thing that people with no skills who don't know how to wrestle and have any skills to wrestle, they do that shit because they think, oh, that's fun, that's cool. But they don't think about the fact those old guys, yeah, some of them had a coke addiction, had pain pill addictions, but it's because they started to do all those stupid spots. But the people before them, they really didn't.
No, they didn't. And I mean, we're not sitting here saying, oh, 1980s wrestling was better, but in a way, it is because
Well. Let me stop you right there. 1980 wrestling that is not the WWE was better.
yes, very, very, very good catch there. What they're doing now is creating stars. And when stars do things that nobody else in the company does, like headshots and getting juice, it means something. It means more than Ricochet going through a table and getting juice on a
While
regular
doing a
mid-card
360
match.
splash.
Yes, it means so much more.
And you don't do them all the time. That's the important thing. You don't do them multiple times in a show. No.
Versus AEW,
Which do it all the time.
exactly.
You're supposed to do them every once in a while. In a blue moon, you'll do that. And the people will go, oh my God. Otherwise, you'll be like AEW where John Moxley has the same hardcore match every time. And people are like, I've seen this match. Every single time you wrestle, it's the same match.
Even the Young Bucks, they do the same thing, the same match, every single time. No failure. It doesn't matter who they're in the ring with. It's going to be the same exact match you see over and over again.
Exactly. But I think this might be a good thing. I think we might see the WWE finally stop doing this whole PG thing because this is wrestling. This is not meant to be PG. You're hitting each other and you're trying to hurt your opponent in storyline. You're doing all these things. It's like, this isn't PG. This isn't for kids. It never was PG. This is just the result of Vince McMahon being afraid of sponsors pulling out when the whole Chris Benoit thing happened. But that wasn't even his fault, really. That was just Chris. One, he went fucking insane and killed his fucking family. So that's the main thing. But it's them allowing the unprotected chair shots to the head. Because you didn't have the issues that you have now because of those unprotected chair shots. You really didn't.
Yeah. And I mean, I think we're both excited, relatively excited, maybe me a little bit more than you for WrestleMania.
I'm more cynical, so.
You are more cynical, and that's okay. That's okay. You expect more from these people.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited for The Rock and Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns. I'm excited for that entire storyline and seeing how it goes night 1 and night 2. That's like what I'm really looking forward to. But I don't care about whatever's going on in the third match. Like, I don't care whatever Maxine Dupree and who the fuck is doing what, or if Chad Gable and the big fat guy do something. I don't really fucking care about them. I care about the stars.
LA Knight, The Rock, Cody Rhodes, Roman Reigns,
exactly.
Those people.
I don't care about the Irish people wearing those like 1920s clothing and what's his name, the little guy, Sheamus, and some other fuck.
But Sheamus and Ridge Holland, who we haven't really heard from in a while. Them. Yeah. And you shouldn't, because they haven't given you a reason to care about them.
Just like we haven't given the people a reason to care enough about this show to listen to.
Not at all.
An hour and 10 minutes. So, that's pretty much all we wanted to talk about. You got anything else?
I really don't. I think that's enough. We've done enough for the people.
All right. So why don't you sign us off, white boy?
Thank you guys for this episode of the Waterboy Experience. You can follow us on the Waterboy Pod on Twitter, Instagram, or TikTok. Or wherever you find your favorite podcast, you can find us We're out there somewhere. You just got to do a little digging. Just dig a little bit. Yeah, dig to the bottom of the barrel and you'll find this podcast. So thank you guys for listening to this episode of the Waterboy Experience. And
Peace.
Second and goal just outside the 10. Carr tips it in and it's Waller. He spins into the end zone for the touchdown. Watching greatness all